Welcome to Zandvoort, Max Verstappen's home track. It is the 8th round of the PSGL F7 Championship. After having finished P4 last week around Silverstone, I intend to fight back this week. With the high-speed nature of the track, the tires will be under tremendous load, especially the left-hand side of the car. After having qualified P1 in wet conditions, I've opted to start on the mediums as it allowed the most amount of flexibility into the race. Should I decide to go long for an overcut, I have the possibility to move on to the softs later on in the race. Should an early safety car come out, then I have the option to move to the hard tires, which should sufficiently bring me to the end of the race.
Into the race, you can see that everybody, all but one driver, decided to start on the mediums. And the plan for this race is simple: survive the opening laps and maintain track position no matter what. Knowing how difficult it is to overtake around Zandvoort, it is crucial that we stay either in P1 or P2. If you fall below P2 and you're on the DRS train, it's almost impossible for you to make moves. And you'll see why in a minute. Going into the middle sector, I'm gonna play around, fish for grip as they say, flicking the wheel mid-corner as to see what the balance looks like with a full fuel load. Since the quali was in the wet, we need to get up to speed very fast in the dry if we want to remain competitive. Jumping a few laps ahead, I get passed on the straight by the Aston Martin driver, who is one of my main championship rivals, ETA driver Yonut. And I don't mind being in P1 or P2 right now, as it is too early in the race to tell who is going to win. As long as we maintain either P1 or P2, we should be in a pretty good position in the closing stages of the race. And right away, my engineer and I, as I get hit in the back by P3, we devised a plan of maximum tire saving. I'm going to try to be a little slower in the high-speed corners because Zandvoort will absolutely demolish your tires on the left-hand side if you're not careful. This means I'm going to be losing quite a bit of pace in the middle sectors. But as long as I stay in P2 and use DRS to close up the gap to P1 on the main straight, we should be in a pretty good position going into the later stages of the race. However, there is one problem. The McLaren behind is on the fresh softs, and he's been very aggressive trying to get into P2 as to make use of his soft compound of tires. And it's not an ideal situation, because for my plan to work, I need to stay in P2 but also not get overtaken by the McLaren. A few laps later, it's the same story. I need to manage my tires, but I also need to keep up with P1 and leave a healthy enough of a gap to P3 so that I don't get overtaken on the main straight. I have to pay attention to the delta to the top left and see how much of a gap I have to P3. If there's no threat to be overtaken, then I'm going to stay happily in P2. But if P3 is too close, then I have to make the overtake into turn 1 if I want to maintain track position. Remember, we need to stay either P1 or P2 for this plan to work. Once again, having to burn overtake on the main straight, but backing off at the last second once it is safe to do so. And it's just a constant management of ERS and tires, which I'm happy to do. And on to lap 11. You can see the tire wear, even with all the tire saving I've been doing. The left side has significantly more wear, almost 3 times more on the left front tire. You can try to imagine what kind of tire wear P1 is dealing with right now. Even though I doubt he's been pushing flat out for the last 16 laps, he should still be dealing with considerably more tire wear than I am. As the McLaren dives into the pits at the end of lap 16, the softs just simply cannot go any longer. And I'm just going to keep up with the same strategy. Currently, there's only 3 cars in the lead train, and the soft runner that has boxed is going to be by himself. And when you're by yourself, especially in the current F1 games, compared to, let's say, if you were with somebody else in a small train, by exchanging DRS with one another. But by yourself, it's a little bit more difficult. And on lap 19, I thought, you know what? Been this sitting behind for a little too long now. I want to stretch my legs a little. And in the middle sector, the gap widens up to 7 or 8 tenths. which goes to show the tire differential that we had. But that's not going to matter because on lap 20, a virtual safety car comes out and I decide, along with my engineer, dive into the box and put on a fresh set of softs. Now 16 laps is quite a stretch on the softs, so I have to be very, very gentle and nurse these tires to the end. Especially when I know that the top 3 will all be on the same tire strategy now. All of the tire saving we did in the first stint has all been for nothing. We are now on even playing ground with everybody else around us, at least the top 3. On pit exit now, it is crucial that we do not exceed the allowed delta and we stay in the green as we go racing once more. You'll see in a second, the Alpine car behind gets a drive-through penalty. And that is why it is so important that you manage your delta on pit exit. And now, instead of being a 3-way fight for the win, it is going to be a 1v1 duel up to the finish line. Me and my championship rival. Right away, the Aston is going to go on the attack and overtake me into turn 1. I suspect that he thinks he has a much superior pace compared to me, seeing how I was lagging behind all stint when we were both on the mediums. In sector 2, he goes right on the attack. He pushes super hard and the gap is widened up to about 8/10. And it's quite scary because with any mistake that I make, it would mean that I lose DRS to him. And if his theory holds true, then it would be very difficult for me to catch up. Though, I want to stay within his DRS, using the same strategy, maybe create some kind of tire offset so that we can have the upper hand going into the final laps. After a few unsuccessful attempts at shaking me, we now move on to lap 31. There's only about 5 laps to go, and this is where we start playing DRS chicken. And if there's one thing that I hate about F124 is that DRS is so powerful that if you have it on the last lap, you're pretty much always guaranteed to win. I'm saying pretty much guaranteed because sometimes things don't go your way. On the penultimate lap now, into turn 1, we are really close to him, but I do not want to risk running into his rear. We do not have to go for any risky maneuvers, but I do want to win this one on track today so that I can reclaim my first position in the championship. Coming out of the fast right-handers, we move on to the second DRS straight of the track. You can see that his red light is flashing. Usually that only happens under acceleration, but right now, he's not using any ERS. He wants me to overtake him because just like me, he wants to have DRS on the last lap to guarantee the win. And he's gonna pull the pin here and go on the attack, but I'm right behind him and we get a good exit here. Only about 3 or 4 tenths separate us and the Aston. And you'll see in a second how powerful DRS is. Tuck into the slipstream, he moves a little all over the place. I choose to dive down the inside and braking as late as possible, still carrying good speed, and he tucks in behind, knowing that he might have another shot for the win through the middle sector. Now it is all about maintaining pace and also trying to save a little bit of battery for the final straight. Because as you know, Zandvoort has the DRS activation point in the middle of the banking, which means there's quite a bit of distance up to the line. And the last thing I want is for him to pass me right as we cross the line. And this is where our tire saving has come in clutch. Even though he might have been the faster driver on track today, I still have about 6 or 7% of tire advantage to him, and that might make the difference going into the final sector. And he's actually pushing quite hard, only about 1/10 separate us, and he actually taps my rear there. He's only 2 tenths behind going into the final corner, and I make a mistake here. I go a little wide, missing my braking point, and I'm going to blast the battery here, but I leave the door open for him, which is the shortest distance to the line. Another mistake, but up to the line. It was unfortunately not enough for the Aston, as there was a mere gap of 3 1/1000ths of a second.
Holy shit.
What a nail-biting finish, but it was a little too close for comfort. And with that, I retake P1, my rightful spot in the championship. With only 4 races to go, I want to guarantee my promotion into the next tier PSGL F6. So you can be damn sure that I will hit the ground running every single race from here on out. Stay tuned for next week's league racing content as I take you to Saudi Arabia, where chaos is sure to unfold. In the meantime, stay safe out there, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.